Hey guys, welcome to another edition of my Finding a New Tennis Racket series of videos. And today I'm going to be testing the Solinco Blackout and Whiteout. And this is going to be my biggest play test yet because I'm going to be testing 7 rackets. So I have the Blackouts 285, 300, and 300 XTD. And I have the Whiteout 290, 305, 305 XTD, and 305 XTD Plus. This particular racket seems to be discontinued because it's not available on the Solinco website. However, you can still get it from some of the other online retailers. So from my first impression, I seem to like the Blackout a little bit better than the Whiteout. I will say, however, that both the Whiteout and the Blackout are power rackets. The Blackout reminds me very much of the Babolat Pure Drive Plus. It features a thicker beam around the 9 and 3 o'clock spots. The Blackout rackets are stiff, so the 285 is 70 RA, the 300 is 71 RA, and the 300 XTD is 70 RA. All Blackouts are 100 square inches in racket head size and feature a 16 by 19 string pattern. All Whiteout rackets are 98 square inches in racket head size. They do give you an option of a 18 by 20 string pattern or a 16 by 19 string pattern. As you know from my previous playtest videos, I always choose a more open string pattern. So all Whiteouts that I tested are 16 by 19. And while the Whiteout is not as stiff as the Blackout, it's still a stiff racket. The 290 is 67 in stiffness. The 305 is 66. The 305 XTD is 67. And the 305 XTD Plus is 64. The biggest difference between the Whiteout and the Blackout, apart from the racket head size, is the beam width. So the Whiteout has a constant beam, meaning that the beam width is the same through the entirety of the frame, and it's quite thin, coming in at 21.7 millimeters. And a classic beam like that is generally associated with a more control-oriented racket, but surprisingly, all Whiteouts were actually quite responsive, especially the longer models. And that's what I love about Solinco, because they do make longer rackets. The Blackout 300 XTD comes in at 27.5 inches in length. The Whiteout 305 XTD comes in at 27.5 inches in length as well. And the 305 XTD Plus is 28 inches long, and this racket was so fun to test. So based on my first impression, I probably like the Blackout 300 XTD the best. But to know for sure which one of these rackets is going to make my final playtest video, I'm going to have to play some points with them. All right, we're going to start off with the regular length Solinco Blackout 285. Too early to say, but those backhands didn't feel too great. It's uncertain whether it was the racket or me. So this is for sure a power racket, I can already tell you that. So far the power level is good, maneuverability is good despite this racket only being 1-point headlight. The overall weight is low and the swing weight is quite low. So this racket is maneuverable while at the same time giving plenty of responsiveness. So that might be an issue with the low swing weight and a low static weight, that when I take full cuts, I don't get the control that I want to have with the racket. That forehand didn't feel so bad technically, but it still went long. I sprayed it. That forehand on the other hand was very bad technically, and it still felt horrible. So it's a combination of bad forehand and the racket not feeling that great. Yeah, when I take bigger cuts, the stability is not that great. I don't have the feeling that I can take big cuts with this racket. It's a situation where I would have to adjust my swings and be more careful because the racket is just powerful but not stable enough. I 100% meant to chip my return short and draw my opponent in and then expose him at the net. I'm kidding. That was a complete miss hit, and it was an off-center hit that did not feel great, to be honest. I have to point out that this is a super nice racket. It does feel good in the hand, and the ball is responding well. And for the right player, the 285 is going to be the perfect stick. The serve definitely doesn't feel bad. I'm getting some good response on it, but it's not quite 100%. And I sprayed the slice a little bit there. Okay, last point with the 285, and then I'm gonna switch to the 300. I'm gonna run around and blast. Oh, I couldn't, the ball hit the line. So the verdict on the Blackout 285, very nice racket for the right player. It's maneuverable, it's responsive, it feels good in the hand, but I'm lacking too much stability to consider this one for my final play test. And I'm hoping that Blackout 300 is gonna give me more stability because of the increased swing weight and static weight. As the name says, this racket comes in at 300 grams unstrung. I can already feel more power on that serve, more responsive than the 285 for sure. I spoke too early. That backhand felt horrendous. And it's so hard to figure out whether that's a backhand that's going to feel horrendous with any racket, or was it horrendous because of the racket. That's the challenge when it comes to testing rackets. I'm not 100% sure. Okay, that one I missed it, but it did feel a little bit better. Okay, so that backhand I hit a little bit better technically. It was for sure cleaner and it felt better. So let's continue and not make any rash judgments on the Blackout 300. I love when that happens. You hit a good serve and the ball plops right on the baseline. It doesn't bounce. But the good news is that the serve did feel really good. Huge difference between the 285 and the 300. This one is way better for me. I have more control for sure when I swing big. The racket that I would compare this one to is the Pure Drive. It is very similar. I do think this one is a tad more dampened compared to the Pure Drive, but this is for sure a power racket. I'm having a good time playing with this one. My second serve, I'm going to try to run around and come to the net. Was long? Okay, so I caught that forehand a little bit late and I missed it long. But forehands like that are a huge factor for me when I'm considering a racket. See, when I hit my forehand well, any racket will feel decent to some extent. But when I hit my forehand poorly, some rackets are going to feel much worse than others. So what I'm looking for is responsiveness, even if I don't swing big, even if I make contact behind my body. And this Blackout 300 Solinco for sure gives me that. For sure, one of the best serve rackets that I've tried so far. Even that miss right there, I took a wild swing and it felt pretty good coming off the racket. The control wasn't as bad as it looked. I feel like if I get another crack at that return, hit it a little bit more in front, I can start making it. Yeah. All right, last point with the 300. I have to say the Blackout 300 is one of the best rackets that I've tried so far. Guys, I'm so excited to test the Blackout 300 XTD coming in at 27.5 inches in length. This is very reminiscent of my old racket, the Babolat Pure Drive Plus. Let's see if it plays anything like it. It's in? Out? How much out? Show me, like this? Oh, that far? Was like that? Okay, thanks. Okay, that was better. Thanks, Vela. I was asking you not because I was doubting your call. I wanted to know how much I sprayed my forehand.
Oh my God. Ah, Milan, let's try again, please. Was in? I think I missed it, Milan. Was the one on the line or was it the long one?
Yeah, I think it's this one here.
You think it was in the line? All right, thanks. Like, I'm not trying to argue calls because he actually gave me this one, but I thought that it was a little bit long, and there are two marks that are very close to each other, one long and one on the line. I want to be sure that these balls are in fact going in. Oh. Milan, was that out? Was no way, was in? I don't know, man, it looked long. Can you check? Can you check the mark? I think it felt long to me. Like, I don't want you to give me balls, okay? This is reverse cheating. I'm trying to make sure that the balls that he's calling in are in fact in. Milan, was that in? Oh, it was out. Okay, okay. So here are the facts. I'm blasting the ball, but I'm also hitting extremely long. And there's a high risk factor regarding this racket, no doubt about it. It's responsive, but it's also extremely powerful. The ball is exploding off the frame. And the question is, can I control my shots enough? Because again, I'm hitting so long on all my ground strokes. Maybe a little bit too long. Too good, Milan. Pretty good defensive slice, so that felt good. I didn't do much there, and the ball shot off the racket very deep. Okay, again, it feels so, same spot, right? How far? Show me exactly how far. Like with your hand, Milan. Like that. Again, I'm not disputing the call. I just want to know how much I'm missing these shots by, because I'm hitting so long and I'm almost making the shots, but yeah, it feels good. It's just a tad long on a lot of them. This is probably my favorite racket that I've tested so far. I'm having a great time playing with this. I'm getting a lot of pop on my shots. But the important question is it the right racket for me? Because I am spraying just a tad. That is the big dilemma here. How the drop shot feels is not a big factor when it comes to selecting a racket for me personally. Too good. And that drop shot did for sure not feel the best. Too good, Milan. However, chips, blocks, pickup shots, for example, that return that I just hit, are a great measurement for a racket's responsiveness. And this racket is responsive on those shots, and this is an important factor for me to consider. Okay, I'm gonna go kick serve here. I'm gonna try to hit it a little bit heavier. Too good, Milan. Not nearly heavy enough on that one. He got me with a return. Racket's fault? I don't think so. All right, we're gonna turn up the heat on the serve here, and we're gonna go for some aces. So while the 300 and the 300 XTD have the same static weight, the XTD has a higher swing weight because of its increased length. So the question is whether the maneuverability is better on the 300. So it could be a situation where I'm controlling the ball better with the 300, but I'm getting less power. So it's going to be an important consideration to make. I'm going to go back to the 300 after this point. So I think this one has more control, but it has less power. And also this one gives me more ability to put spin on the ball if I want to because of its lower swing weight. So this is a tough dilemma, deciding which one of these two rackets is better for me. Let's see. Aye! It was long, Milan. Here, redo that second serve. I called it late. It was a little bit long though. So for sure, I'm hitting the ball shorter with this one, and I'm also getting less power on the serve. Now, because this racket has a lower swing weight, the kick serve is probably going to feel better. Let's see. So let me explain it this way. This racket for sure is not giving me the same sensations as the other racket, especially now that I switch back to the 300 from the 300 XTD. I'm getting less power on my serve, and my balls from the baseline are landing shorter. So this is having a psychological impact because I'm recognizing that some of these shots are not going where I need them to go, and I'm making the connection with the racket, which is resulting in somewhat of a negative mindset, and I'm starting to play a lot worse. So don't get it twisted. The Blackout 300 is a phenomenal racket, and it felt so good when I switched to it from the 285. But now going back to it from the XTD, it feels so different. So the psychology of the previous rackets that you use is a huge factor to consider when it comes to testing rackets. All right, now I'm back to the 300 XTD, and let's see if I'm going to play a little bit better. I did not play well with the 300 on those points. So definitely less maneuverability, and it's going to be more difficult for me to put topspin on my forehand. My forehand's going to flatten out more, but I don't necessarily mind that. That's my normal forehand anyway. Let me check, Mila, let me check. I think it's good. Yes, on the line. Oh my God. Don't get beaten by a cheap shot. That was a great serve. I just wasn't ready, but I am registering that I'm serving pretty well with the XTD. So the return of serve is another huge factor to consider when it comes to rackets. And there are two ways to judge the return. There is the return where you can take a full rip, and then there's the return that's more of a defensive shot where the stroke is reduced. Too good, Milan. So far with the XTD on those returns where I'm not taking a full cut, it feels extremely good. Those are the more important returns, because those are going to take place more frequently. So as I told you guys in one of my previous videos, the two-handed backhand is not a deal breaker for me. I am willing to sacrifice my two-hander to some extent, and while the two-hander doesn't feel that bad, with the XTD it doesn't feel 100% right. Okay, last point, I'm going to go for an ace down the tee. I'm going to rip it as hard as I can. So, out of all the blackouts, I am going to consider the 300 XTD, but I'm going to compare it to the whiteout. Not today, I'm going to take a day off. And once I test all the whiteouts, I'm going to make my selection for the final playtest video.